Hello, everyone. Give us a few minutes to allow people to join us, and we'll get started in about 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, so I am waiting a few more seconds to get started and looking for the live on here. Okay, refresh. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Daffney Moore. I am an associate fellow with New Cities, and I'm the Chief Opportunity Zone Officer with the St. Louis Development Corporation. And by now, you have heard that St. Louis is a new urban champion. We've partnered with New Cities to tell stories about St. Louis and about growth, collaboration, and how we're trying to be a more equitable city by addressing some of the problems that the city of St. Louis is facing. But today, our conversation is about becoming a networking champion. We have the amazing Gisele Marcus with us. She is the guru of networking and relationship building. And part of the series for St. Louis, we thought it was important to share how newcomers are come to St. Louis and even in other cities to build a new purpose, a new business, or to join a new firm. And we wanted to talk about Giseles experience in St. Louis and to give some good tips about how you can build relationships as a newcomer to a new city. So, Gisele, welcome.
Thank you, Daphne. Glad to be here. Thank you so much to you and New Cities for the opportunity.
So, I'm just going to jump right in and just let's have this conversation. So, what attracted you to St. Louis? And how did you adjust to being a newcomer in St. Louis? Because St. Louis, we're pretty tough. So how did that work out for you when you first got here?
Sure. So initially, I was attracted to St. Louis by way of a job opportunity. I came here to be the chief operating officer at the St. Louis Regional Chamber. And what attracted me to the region, I've lived, I should say this, postgraduate school, I believe this is my sixth city that I've
Wow.
lived in. So I'm accustomed to, planting my feet in a new city and finding my way around. But I would say what I found to be attractive about St. Louis is its geographic location. I like the fact that it is within 5 hours of driving distance between here and Chicago, here and Kansas City, um, Indianapolis, Memphis. I like the idea that you don't necessarily have to get on a plane. You could actually be comfortable in your car and still be in other fabulous cities. Secondarily, I like the fact I'm a native New Yorker. So the fact that Forest Park is larger than Central Park was of interest to me because I just didn't know that. I think that St. Louis has a lot of hidden benefits that people just don't know about. And third, the fact that they have a lot of cultural festivals that you can take part in, which actually portrays, the diversity of the city. So those are the three things that attracted me to the area. And how did I adjust? I will be honest and say I had help. And I would suggest this for others going into new cities, particularly when you're starting a new job. And the help that I had was that my boss, and I use that term very endearingly, made sure that I was comfortable. And what I mean by that, he wasn't from here either. And as you said, it can be challenging to adjust to St. Louis because it has, a culture of its own. with people that are very prideful of being from this area and living in this area. And it can be very difficult to break into it. And what he did that opened it up for me is, as part of my offer letter, he mentioned that there was going to be a welcome reception hosted for me, and with some of the very, top leaders in the region as hosts, as well as invitees. So that gave me the opportunity to accelerate building relationships. So the people that were invited would be organizations that I was going to be working with, and also organizations that I had been a part of in other cities. So I was part of the National Sales Network. So he made sure that he introduced me to the president of that. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So he made sure that I had a bridge to that organization. So it actually accelerated my ability to network, in that if I was trying to get to know all of these people as a result of just the natural cadence of my work, it probably would have taken me months to do. But by being initially introduced, it then gave me the opportunity to figure out ways to follow up on that initial meeting, as well as methods that I typically use to maintain those relationships. I can feel free to tell you more about those if you'd like to hear more.
Sure. So what I'm hearing, everyone, is that when you move to a city, make sure in your contract it says that they have a welcome reception for you, and that they have a sponsor that will help you navigate any city. We are very prideful in St. Louis. We are the show me state in Missouri, and St. Louis is a great, great place to live. And one of the things, I can't exactly remember how I met Gisele, and she's going to probably get me for this. But when I did meet Gisele, she was really warm. And Gisele helped me connect to other people because, again, she's a relationship builder. And some of those connections have actually developed into long-term friendships. So talk about how you connect people, because you have a gift of just saying, hey, I think this person is right for you. You should connect, and then you can actually connect us.
So for me, it's intentional. So I have a number in my head per week of introductions that I like to be able to make in a given week. And it becomes easy because you may just run into someone. So for example, with you and I introduced you to someone that we know in common based on a common organization. And her personality, when I met with her for dinner one evening, I said, you know what? Her and Daphne would get along really well. And both of you have an interest in regard to diversity and the importance of it. So I said, these are two ladies that should meet. So I think just naturally, I'm a connector of people. I am an only child. So as a young person, I always wanted to see people gather and be connected to one another. And as an only child, there was always a need for me, to be connected to others. And I enjoy that. It gives me energy. So I like to give that to others as well.
Okay, so talk more about, like, if someone is shy, and I won't use me as an example because while I do think I'm an introvert some days, I'm really not shy. But talk about how hard it can be. Talk about some of those challenges, because not everybody is as gifted as you at actually networking.
Good point. So to your point, people that aren't introverts need to understand introverts, in that an introvert typically is not, it's not their natural characteristic to have a desire to walk into a room full of people and just begin talking to people they don't know. That's not what they do. But they'll do it because they know they have to, but they find that draining to their energy. So what I try to do, so I think it's the job of those that are extroverts like myself to actually be willing to approach people. And you won't know, but some people will be introverts. And for an introvert, it's easier when they're approached as opposed to when they have to come in and do all the heavy lifting. The other thing about introverts, when you're working with them, you have to be sure that you don't pack their calendar with back-to-back Zoom meetings in a day. That exhausts them. So therefore, you need to make sure that if you're working with them, that you're being courteous, gracious, in terms of not overloading them in that way. And for those that are introverts, what I would say to you, and I said to others, is give yourself a defined goal. So if you're going to walk into a certain room, and I know introverts that do this, they'll say, I'm going to be there for 40 minutes. Okay. That's about the amount of energy that they have. And while I'm there in 40 minutes, it's going to be my goal to meet 2 new people that I don't know. And here's a way to do it. Approach people that you do know and ask them to introduce you to people that you don't know, because therefore it takes the pressure off of you. So those are some examples that I would share, for introverts and for extroverts to be aware of introverts.
Okay, that's good stuff. So you did a TEDx, and I had the pleasure of actually being in the audience for this TEDx, and it was awesome. You gave a lot of tips about how to actually network and things about how to show appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that a lot of times when we meet people and we start building relationships, we actually don't show enough appreciation to the people that we're actually connecting with.
Mm-hmm. So I'll start with the piece about the how-to network, right? So on the how-to, I think about, well, how do you actually build it? And today, we're in a virtual experience. So therefore, it can be, so let's just use LinkedIn, as an opportunity. If say, for example, I am professionally, I'm an operations executive. I make organizations hum. So therefore, in terms of other people that I'd like to know, I'm always thrilled to meet other people that are chief operating officers or VP of operations within service industries. So by just doing my daily look at LinkedIn, I may see someone that's connected to someone that I know who's a VP of ops at a company. I will ask for someone that I know to introduce me to that person. Would you be willing to make a warm introduction? And then I provide them with some keywords or things to say about me to encourage the other person to say yes, because you don't want to put the onus on someone to make the introduction, then have them doing the heavy lifting about, well, what should I say? You should give them what you want them to say. So that's one thing about how to network. The other piece in how to network is an understanding that it is a two-way relationship. This is not just about you getting your next job, or your child going to the best school, or me, I. That is not networking. Networking is a two-way interaction where both people are getting something out of the relationship. So for example, if I meet someone that's a COO at another company, I may say to them, hey, I'm part of this international organization that consists of other women that are in operations. May I introduce you to that organization? May I send you some information about that? And that may be helpful to them. Also, in terms of building the network, what is it that that person is interested in? Besides the work that they do. And sometimes in social media, they'll give you some hints to that if you look at the things that they post. So for example, if you know that person went to Washington University, and Washington, their area of expertise is medicine, and you see an article on that topic, you can send that to them. So that's a way of being able to give back. You also asked about how to show appreciation. I think about that in terms of how do you stay connected to your network. So once you've met someone, it should not ever be a one and done. It should be a continuous relationship, but the onus is on you to always reinvent that relationship. So one thing that I like to do, I always like to be unique and to show up in ways that people just aren't expecting. So one of those is when someone, and two of these I'm going to give two examples about birthdays because they're easy. So if someone's having a birthday, what I do is I look up who are some other famous people that were born on that day that they would know about. So then when I wish them a happy birthday, I also say, on this day, these people were also born. And as a result of that, hey, they are in good company because it's your birthday too. So sometimes that's a piece that they don't know, and
That's good. That's
and,
good. That's
and it sets you out to be unique. Even if you're on social media and it's a flood, they'll notice that particular thing because it's unique. Secondarily, what I like to do is, birthdays are flooded days, particularly now with social media, where it usually will remind you it's someone's birthday. So what I like to do is on someone's half yearly birthday. So say, for example, if your birthday is on December 1st, on June 1st, I like to acknowledge your half birthday and wish you a happy birthday, because you're not going to be flooded on that day. And then it'll be a surprise to you that someone's doing that because it's just not normal. But guess what? You will be remembered for being gracious in that way and thoughtful in that way.
Well, those are some great tips. So, okay, everyone, half birthdays are important. Know who's famous on that birthday and do something unique for people. Learn how to make it a two-way street when you're networking, and think about the other person, if they're an introvert or extrovert, and build those relationships, because it's definitely a two-way street. So, okay, my brain is ticking. My brain is ticking. So I also remember you talked about sending note cards to people and thank you letters. So can you share with us briefly about the importance of sending those notes to people and how that also helps you to build long-term relationships?
Correct. Yes. So I do believe in sending out note cards. And then again, you'll know, since I'm an operations person, everything about me is very intentional. So usually it's the weekend, usually Saturdays, when I sit down and I write out my note cards. And what do I think about? I think about, I keep dates. So like, for example, recently I know a friend of mine, her husband had passed like a year before, right? So I just sent a note, because oftentimes when people pass away, there's such an attention at that moment. But as days go on, people just kind of go on with their normal activity. That person is still living with that. So at the year mark, I will acknowledge that and say, hey, I remember, on this day, you lost your husband, or you lost your father, or someone like that. And they'll know that, but they'll actually be glad to see that you remembered that, because they wouldn't be thinking about you remembering that. The other thing is when people have gotten awards. And oftentimes you'll see that posted on social media. I send them a note and say, hey, I saw that you received an award for X, Y, and Z. Congratulations. Or I saw you had a speaking engagement. Congratulations. I see that you are starting a new job. Congratulations. And the art of a paper note, with the proliferation of the internet and electronic media, is really becoming lessened. And for me personally, I enjoy getting something in my mailbox other than bills and junk mail. So I presume that other people do too. And quite honestly, people just want to be remembered. People want to be acknowledged. And if you have taken the time to invest in that relationship in that way, the recipient will appreciate that and remember that.
So remember, people like to feel acknowledged and appreciated. And I love the thing that everyone wants to feel special, right? So that's a key part of networking. So I know that, during an interview, or if you've been at a job for a while, right? How do you keep those relationships, other than what we've already discussed, alive? Because say you met someone 2 years ago and you haven't seen them in a while, but there's a job opportunity coming up and they may work at that company. Like, how would you go about reaching out to that person?
That's a great question. And someone just asked me that recently. So it's always good practice to keep in contact with individuals from places where you've worked before, because you never know when you might need them. And vice versa, they may need you for something. So it's a relationship that you've already built. So you already have it. You already invested the time. So now the component is, how do I keep that relationship alive? And by doing so, some of the tips that I mentioned, acknowledging their birthday, for example, also make sure when you leave a place that you understand the people that you've worked with, what is their social media of choice? Not what is your social media of choice, but what is their social media of choice, and make sure that you follow them there. Why? Because if they post, you'll know what they're up to. So that's a good way of keeping in touch. And if you want to be a little more detailed, as I am, I keep a list, right, of people who I want to keep in contact with or touch base with quarterly, semi-annually, annually. And typically for people that I've worked with in the past, I typically want to touch them at least every 6 months, no more than a year. But it's so easy because we all get so busy to not do any of it. So what I would say is make sure that you're being intentional, and and if you keep this in mind, you never want to be asking for help or throwing out a lifeline when you haven't been in touch, because that can be very, well, let me say, for me, I find that uncomfortable. So it's important to keep your network warm, and no one better than people that you've worked with to talk about your character, to talk about how it is to work with you. And you never know, you may need a reference from that person. And I'll say this, sometimes in the world of doing references for interviews, they don't just call the people that are on your interview list, right? Sometimes they call people that are not on your interview list. And you always want to be on good terms with people at all times.
Okay, so we got some homework to do because Gisele just told us we need to have a list of the people that we need to keep in contact with. We need to do it at least 6 months, max year out. So making sure that we stay in contact at least occasionally with these people, because you never know when they're going to need you, and you never know when they're going to call you. So it's definitely important if you're in the networking business, if you're trying to move into a different field, to keep those contacts going. So, okay, so I'm going to talk a little more personal, because Gisele has a great way of gathering people. When Gisele calls, people come. So I had the privilege of being invited to this brunch, and it definitely was a networking brunch. So can you talk more about that? Because I thought that was so cool. I met 10 people, y'all. I probably actually made more than that, but I remembered at least 10 of those people. So I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. So again, I am a believer in connecting people. And like I said, I've lived in so many different cities, probably as an adult, probably 10 cities, including Johannesburg, abroad. And one thing that I've learned over time is that people that I know usually interact well with other people that I know, but sometimes the two shall never meet. So there are times when I say, you know what, I'm going to gather this type of group, because this type of group has a particular commonality. And like you said, that brunch was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there were people who had heard of each other, but had never met. And there were some people who had never met. The other thing that I believe has been magical about that is sometimes when you bring people together, there'll be people that kind of shrink back because they don't know, like say if you didn't know anyone else besides me, there are people who shrink back. But there's something about the chemistry of the people that I bring together where that doesn't happen. They actually just attract to one another. And then again, right, I'm always about make the connections, keep the connection. So what do we have as a result of that? We actually have a group meet that Daphne is a part of for the group that actually came to that breakfast. And now on a regular basis, we keep in touch with each other because we have an idea of the things that we all like and enjoy. And that's a way for us to keep up with one another.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that is so great about that is, like, I've at least 4 of those people I now have a relationship with. So a lot of times when people are inviting you to things and you say no, you're missing out. It is definitely a great way to network. And I've actually been able to use them as resources because they are so, Gisele has some amazing friends. Can I say that? And they've become my amazing friends. And I definitely think it's important to welcome that newcomer in. I think my final question to you is, like, how do you overcome some of those challenges, right? Like if I'm not as outgoing as you are, how do you overcome? What is that one key thing? Like, what can that person do to really, as a newcomer, get involved within a city?
Mhm. One easy way is consider the things that you like and enjoy. So for example, for me, I have a passion around children that are wards of the state. So typically when I go to a new city, and again, that's a commonality, right? So other people who enjoy that type of community endeavor, we're going to have something in common. So I would say look for organizations that give you a spark or a brightness in terms of something that ignites your flame, and then join that organization, or at least get to know it before you join. And that's another way of expanding your circle and expanding your network. For people that struggle with networking, I've been told it's always easier when you're in collaboration with a like-minded person, because it makes it easier because you have something common to talk about.
Okay. So Gisele, where can people find you?
Certainly, I'm glad you asked. So, for so long, I've wanted to share what I know about networking, because all of this was learned over time. It's not like this, I woke up one day and the light bulb went on. And I've always wanted to share this with others. So, anyone can find me at www.giselemarcus.com. That's www.giselemarcus.com. You see my name on the screen. So you can find me there. I'm also on all social media outlets under my name.
Well, cool. Well, one of the things I want to do a brief recap, because Gisele gave us some good information. One, keep in contact with your people that you meet. Don't be afraid to introduce yourself. Be prepared that if you want someone to introduce them to another person, to have your script written out of what you want them to say. Make sure that you keep in contact with that person at least 6 months, no more than a year out. Make sure that if you have a new job, that you ask them to have a sponsor or do a welcome reception for you. Not everybody's going to do a welcome reception, but they can at least introduce you to one person. And again, keep notes. Make sure that you write down who you're meeting and who you would like to keep in contact with. And again, don't be afraid of getting to know someone. And again, brunches are really important too. So have a brunch, introduce people, because that is one of the best ways to make someone feel comfortable when networking. So again, I just want to say thank you to Gisele. As I stated earlier, St. Louis is a new urban champion. Make sure you check out all the great articles that have been written and featured. There are some talented people in St. Louis, and we've had the privilege of highlighting them in our New Urban Champions featured by New Cities. You can go to newcities.org and check them out, and we'll have information in the feed. Again, we've enjoyed this conversation. I hope that you've learned something about how to become a networking champion. I think Gisele gave us great information. So stay tuned, because there's more to come, and this video will be replayed in the upcoming weeks. If you missed something, or if you would like to reach out to Gisele, go to www.giselemarcus.com, and thank you, and we will see you soon.